All right, welcome back. Just as I was done talking about the God form tier, a longtime supporter and someone who has been in the God form tier previously had responded to the one who was asking about the God form tier in the last video. And he had a lot to say about it, like the length of my entire monitor to try to get this screen capture barely covered it. And it was in sharp contrast to the glowing testimonial that I had received on Subscribestar. And so I feel like I need to address it. He's been a longtime supporter, and I don't like to leave any of my supporters unhappy, let alone my top supporters. So I feel like we need to try to diagnose what's going on here, because he has not been having that great a time, not just with the God form tier, but just in general. The God form tier just didn't fix what had been broken to his expectations. And so we need to take a look under the hood to see what's going on to properly diagnose and treat the cause of his issues. So let's get into it. All right, so this person has left a very lengthy response to someone wanting to know their experience in the God form tier. And so there's a lot to unpack here, so we're just going to dive right in. He writes, "Hello, previous God form tier here. The only reason you should enter into the God form tier is if you have the spare cash and you are just showing gratitude without expecting much in return for your $100. And I agree with this 100%. One should never spend more than they can afford. And the thing about magic, in order to get it to work, you have to adhere to the law of least expectancy. We have gone over this a number of times, and it is a law of magic. This person does know this, but spoiler alert, it will come back up as one of the key issues that he has. Regardless, it's important to manage one's expectations when joining any of the tiers, but especially the God form tier. This is really the crux of doing magic for hire. The platforms don't like it, the payment processors don't like it, because they don't understand it. And neither do the people you're doing the rituals for sometimes, because magic must adhere to the law of least expectancy. And so the problem becomes when you pay somebody to do a ritual for you, you expect a result. But that is not adhering to the law of least expectancy. And when somebody doesn't get what they expected, they become dissatisfied, and then they're wanting to do refunds or chargebacks. And that's why platforms and payment processors frown on that kind of thing, when it was that expectation that may have blocked it from happening in the first place. And so from the start, I've always said that the God form tier is simply a bonus for your gratuity, that results will vary and are not guaranteed, because there simply is no way to predict how the magic will manifest or even be blocked altogether. And so I've always approached it from the perspective of providing bonus content that I include you in, because I've had to cover my rear. Because sooner or later, there's going to be somebody who's not satisfied for whatever reason, and we're trying to get to that reason in this video. He continues, "You will get an effect from the monthly rituals he does, but the effects are very subtle and sometimes irritating." Well, not necessarily. This is the results may vary that I was talking about. You know, the person who left their glowing testimonial on Subscribestar that I have shared with you, they're not having subtle but irritating effects. Everything's going quite okay for them. So how is it that they can have really good results every month and then this person isn't? And they're very similar in a lot of ways too. They've both been in the tier quite a long time. They both have dropped out and rejoined at various times. So it's not like the Subscribestar testimonial person's life is complete and they don't ever have issues. No, they've dropped out and come back later and saying it's the best thing they've ever subscribed to. And so the contrasting results of these two individuals is worthy of examination, because they're both quite similar, but yet they're getting different results. He continues on, "Heads up though, if you have FX cast a spell upon you with an angel involved, expect a positive result or an easy hard lesson from the angel used. Like someone is sparking your sun, ego, and Mars, anger, deep cutting rage, while at a social funeral gathering, where you need to be respectful, humble, and non-aggressive. Now, I believe he's referring to the Sun-Mars ritual that we did last year, I guess, back in October or November. And I chose that particular planetary combo because Mars rules over surgeons and surgeries, which I was having, and the Sun rules over healing and success. And so I put them two together and informed the God formed here that this planetary combo can manifest in their lives in any number of ways that correspond with those two planets. The really interesting thing about that particular ritual was that the Mars candle had actually burned the outside label, which was exactly what the surgeon planned to do to me. He was going to go into my spine and burn off the nerves that were causing me pain. So even though I took this as a good sign for my particular circumstance, I also warned the God formed here when this happened to let them know that it could potentially lead to a not so good result for them. I didn't want to see them get burned. So be on the lookout. That could possibly come about when you're working with two fire planets, the sun being considered a planet in astrology. And again, results may vary. My surgery did have a minor complication, but in the end, it did go fine. But for this individual, they didn't get an outcome that was pleasing to them. He says, I have had very few positive results from his group workings, but for the one time, I actually did the God form ritual as shown. And that brings up another point, that I've always wanted the God form rituals to be more than FrAIter's doing this for you. I really intended it to be, I'm doing this with you, that you can do these rituals along with me, because it's just going to be more potent that way, because I am doing this to teach you as well. Mainly, FrAIter's magic cannot get you everything or anything you want with little to no effort. That is his marketing gimmick, or at least the illusion his servitor casts over you to get you to give FX money. Now, that's simply not true. It's not a marketing gimmick. There's no real good way to market your results may vary and results aren't guaranteed. I've always maintained that I mediate on people's behalfs, and what happens, happens, and what doesn't happen, doesn't happen. And I have no servitors going around getting money from people, except for the people who owe me money, the people who steal from me, the ones who download the programs illegally. I have servitors that go around and collect for those, but I'm not going around casting magic on people and sending servitors out on people to get them to send me money. So that part is simply not true. All the money magic that I have is in the Secrets of Wealth program that anyone is able to use for themselves, which you can find at mindandmagic.com, as well as any other program mentioned here today. I don't know where he got that idea. That's simply assumptions and speculation on his part. I don't have servitors casting illusions on people to get them to give me money, nor have I ever. We are back with this mailbag of one. He continues, magic allows for the allowable. There needs to be a good chance for you to get the thing you want, and you have to not want it at all. And I would agree with this to a certain degree, right? Because you could say, oh, I would have cast magic. I would have go to the moon. Well, if you're not a trained astronaut, that's probably not going to happen. So yeah, you should probably keep your requests and petitions within the realm of possibility. That's just common sense. Magic tends to take the path of least resistance. And so the more avenues you have open to you for your magic to manifest, the easier time it's going to have in manifesting. If you don't have any roads open to you for your magic to manifest, then it may not. And you'll need to do a road opener, which we had just done in the God formed tier. So yes, that makes sense. And as for not wanting it at all, well, you have to want it on some level to even do magic for it in the first place. But it is like I tell people, I want for nothing because I don't really desire anything that strongly. And when I do, it's in the circle. I don't take it with me outside of the circle. When I'm done with ritual, I'm done. I do not dwell on it. I do not focus on it. So there's some truth to that. But as all truths are but a half-truth, according to Hermetics and the Kabbalion, that's the other side of it. He says you will not become a millionaire in less than a year without causing harm to somebody. Why not? Who's it causing harm to? Right? You just add to your intention statement, may it harm none. May it bless everyone involved. Who's it going to harm? See, this statement right here is the first real red flag of a mindset issue. Because I've heard this line of thinking before, and I've never, ever have accepted the notion that in order to become wealthy, someone else must suffer. That somebody somewhere is getting screwed over in order for you to make your fortune. And the only people I've ever really heard use that are people without money, which is completely surprising considering this person has thrown me 100 hours a month off and on again for many years. So there's no faulting him on taking action on this, but this belief of not being able to become rich unless you hurt somebody else is a very dangerous limiting belief. Because look at it this way. What you experience in this reality is a result of your vibrational frequency, which is determined in no small measure by your mindset. And so if you have a belief that you can't get wealthy without hurting someone, well, you don't want to hurt someone, so you're never going to be wealthy. That one belief alone will prevent you from acquiring any real substantial money that you may really desire. And understand that these limiting beliefs are not so much conscious beliefs, although they could be congruent with the subconscious, but they're primarily a subconscious problem. They will automatically trigger on their own, just like executing a program. Anytime that you're ready to come into any substantial money, it triggers and prevents you from doing so because it doesn't want to be the evil, greedy guy hurting people. Nobody wants to do that. And so your reality is literally limited by limited beliefs. Everyone's is. Everyone has limiting beliefs of some nature. It's just that the magician works on getting out from under those. He says you will not become an NFL quarterback if you are past high school. Well, it's unlikely, but tell that to Kurt Warner, 2-time Super Bowl MVP. He got picked up from arena football as a backup, and our regular quarterback, Trent Green, got injured, and then he stepped up, the old man that he is, and won the Super Bowl. And I know that because he played here, not because I follow sports all that much. I understand a desire to be realistic, but that's also a limiting belief, right? Because, it can't be done. It can't be done. Well, the person who thinks something can be done and the person who thinks something can't be done are both right. So when I say that you need to keep things within the realm of possibility, such as, maybe not wanting to go to the moon, like, who knows, in 10 years' time, Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos could have commercial flights going there. Just like there was no procedural surgery for my spine until there was. Just like there's no cure for paralysis, but now with these new Neuralink chips, they're actually getting people to move again. So understand that what may not be possible today may very well be possible down the road. And that's really something to think about. And so when it comes to magic, you really have to focus on the end result. What is it that you really, truly want? If you didn't have any limitations, what is it that you want? And focus on that during ritual and during ritual only. And then afterward, put it out of your mind altogether. Don't dwell on it. Because what it is that we may think might not be possible may just be our own limiting beliefs.
We'll never get it out now.
Always with you, what cannot be done.
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No different. Only different in your mind.
And hopefully these Yoda quotes will make much more sense now. The process is the same. The only difference is that one has been assigned a tag of impossibility and the other hasn't. He says, however, if you are disciplined enough, you might be able to put yourself in a schizophrenic haze. So while your body lays comatose from the drugs, you might be able to live your dream by removing reality entirely. Well, no, that's not typical at all. Again, reality is what you make it. If this is somebody's reality, it's because they made it their reality. From the limiting beliefs of their mindset, the things that they put a lot of emotional force into, to arrive at a vibrational frequency that puts them in a reality that resonates with that vibrational frequency. I think we're going to be moving into the crux of the matter shortly here. He says the main reason I kept giving $100 a month on and off for years was the effectiveness of his teaching upon my life. This man's teachings helped me when I was about to commit unalive in front of my dying father, and I was grateful to have come across Frater Xavier to learn about the secrets of this world. Yeah, and I hear that a lot, and it's very humbling to hear what an effect you have had on people. And I did say in the previous video that there are really only two reasons for somebody to join the God-formed tier, and that was it's either working for them, as with the Subscribe Star patron who gave his testimonial, and or because they are grateful for the work that I've done and the impact that I've had on them. And this falls in line with that. He says, this channel changed my life, but improved my life is not quite it. It killed the weak, innocent man-child with dreams and instead grew a lonely, confused adult that sees the lies society pushes. Well, there's a lot to unpack right there. Let's start with seeing the lies that society pushes. I'm not so convinced on that one simply because of the limiting belief of becoming a millionaire in a short time that you had written earlier. Is that one of the lies, that you can't get rich without hurting somebody? I think you may want to go through the things that you supposedly see as lies and re-examine them and see if they are a limiting belief that's holding you back. The subconscious is fantastic at getting you the results that are in line with its beliefs. In fact, you won't get any other results other than those that align with its beliefs. It will make sure of it. It controls your reality. Remember, the man who sees the glass half full and the man who sees the glass as half empty are both right. And so instead of seeing things as either truth or lies, you need to start seeing things as a matter of perspective. Now, Ben Kenobi, he told us, he warned us.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
He says an improvement, but not a drastic one, and more of a perspective shift to face my personal demons. Well, that's really all I've ever offered, is a shift in perspective, because sometimes it takes only a shift in perspective to open the doors for someone, because your perspective is the starting point. You know how I've said everything begins in the mind? It begins with the perspective of the mind, to be more, precise. And, he says this, but then he also adds, as if trying to prove my point, at the cost of my money, time, and money-making potential in this lifetime, and also perhaps my life, if the destruction of the USA continues. Well, that's kind of a heck of a perspective to have when you're trying to improve your quality of life. He says, when I was giving $100 a month, I expected a drastic change. And I told you that it all comes down to what we expect. But yet when it comes to magic, you can only get it when you least expect it. That's the law of least expectancy. And it's one of the hardest things for people to overcome. It's a very common sticking point. It's probably 8 out of 10 obstacles when people say they're having difficulty manifesting. And I said it would come back around to expectations. And, if you're expecting a drastic change when it comes to magic, that may be the reason why you're not getting it, because of the law of least expectancy. And I realize that's a paradox, but magic is full of paradoxes. I wish it weren't so. Things would be a lot easier, I know. He says, I expected I would stop smoking weed all day, sitting in a chair full of my own blank. My depression would alleviate, and with the LBRP, middle pillar, and a few sigils, I would be making $1 million a year without any effort, sitting on a 25-acre property, all within a year or two. Well, therein lies another problem. Without any effort? No. Why would you think that when Law of Magic number 30 is taking action? You must have heard me say it more than once that magic supports the action and action supports the magic. They don't even have to be big actions. They could be minimal actions, but it almost always requires some action. Like when I cast for the candle stand for the Godform tier, the new candle stand in the temple. Did I just do the magic and expect it to show up on my doorstep? Well, no, I had to open a web browser and actively search again for one. When the little kitten who got lost in the woods during a blizzard with a foot of ice and snow for 5 days was presumed dead, and I petitioned for its safe return, did I just leave it at that? No, I strapped on my boots and winter clothing and I went out and looked for it. More than once. I put flyers out in the area. I took action, and then it returned. When you don't take action, you are missing a key element of the magical process, and I use the word element deliberately. You are leaving out the element of fire in the process. Fire equates to action, movement. Again, shifts in perspective. He said, eventually, my problems had gotten so bad while I was in God form that I began pleading for help from the 72 angels of the Shem by asking them to teach me a lesson without causing harm. I only asked about half of them because a voice, like someone was in the room with me, told me to stop or you will be taught a lesson you don't want to learn. And I feel you on that one. I have learned plenty of those. Here's the thing with the angels. They do often teach lessons that you don't want to learn, but they only do it if what you're requesting of them does not align with your higher self or the highest good. It's essentially like not being qualified for it yet. And then they teach you a lesson because of that. So you're asking for $1 million a year without any effort, sitting on 25 acres, all within a year or two, while having the limiting belief that you can't become a millionaire without hurting people in that short of a time. And the highest version of yourself would not have that limiting belief. And so by asking them for that, they would now be authorized to teach you a lesson. And that's kind of how they operate. That's their MO. And if you don't want to use angels that may teach you a lesson, and you turn to demons, and they're not out to teach you a lesson so much as to just trick you by rebelling if they get an opportunity to. But we're not really here to get into all that. We'll have to save that for another time. He then concludes with, but what I had gotten out of over my 2 to 3K most likely contributed to a CDL, stop smoking weed every day and can never do it again. I was forced to sell my $150,000 home because my money spending had gotten worse. I made terrible investments and my savings of over $100,000 went down to $36,000. I lost all my money I made from selling my home. I was homeless for 2 years and living at friends' houses and in my car. I took up nicotine and caffeine to offset my depression so I could work for the first time in my life at the ripe age of 25. I make $50,000 before taxes a year driving. I gave up nicotine, caffeine, and now hyper-depressed and hate my city job. Realized we were made by the divine to fail, and failure is a part of the process. We were never intended to get anything done right. We are flawed, and all we can produce is flawed work. Well, so many limitations, so little time. So I'm just going to sum this entire section up with, as within, so without. Right? There's so many things like, oh, I hate my job in my city. Well, they'll hate you in return. As within, so without. When you're hemorrhaging money, like, going from $100,000 down to $36,000, it's usually because of the set point that you have in your subconscious that will lower or raise your finances to what it is set at. I've seen that time and time again. and is typically a result of feeling like they don't deserve it. The set point is always going to be set at what you feel you deserve, subconsciously. Again, the set point is not a conscious thing. It's a subconscious program. That can be easily changed, though. That's the good news. We talk about set points in The Laws of Magick, Volume 2. But yeah, everything here, I know, has the distinct flavor of sour grapes. And again, I know what it's like. I've been there. It's not easy to not express your discontentment when things aren't going right, but your reality will only respond to as above, so below, as within, so without. That's why that maxim is so important. If you consider yourself flawed and all you could ever do is produce flawed work, then that's what you will do. As above, so below, as within, so without. If you're not making the income that you want, which a lot of your post here does concern money, the least of which was the God form cost, actually, but simultaneously you don't feel rich on the inside, your subconscious knows this. It will bring you down to the level that you feel you deserve. And the worse that you feel, the less you feel like you deserve. And then you get into a downward spiral. It's a feedback loop. Reality is a feedback loop. It's a feedback loop of your inner state. It's a symbolic representation of that inner state. You know, I've taught it in The Secrets of Wealth, too, that you have to first feel rich before you become rich. You have to genuinely feel it. It's not something that you can fake. And so maintaining your state control, your inner state, is paramount. Most people get it backwards. They think that they first have to have the money before they can feel rich. But you have to do it the exact opposite way. Napoleon Hill talks about it in Think and Grow Rich. It's all about your inner state. You first feel rich and then the money comes. Well, it's the same way with everything else too. If your life is sucking, then there's something about your inner state that's also sucking. And, you know, I get that. When I went through my dark night of the soul, everything went into a nosedive. But if you stay in that state, it's just going to continue to get worse. You get on that downward spiral. You have to actively combat the downward spiral by maintaining your state control. And this is why when this was posted, I replied that as synchronicity would have it, I just got done with the previous videos. The Thothlight video on the pedestal, where what you put on a pedestal will remain out of your reach. When you put too much importance on something, when you put too much expectation on something. And then the latest video on maintaining your state, thereby controlling your vibrational frequency, trying to get off of that downward spiral and on an upward spiral. And it was just like those videos were tailor-made for this person. I mean, I was actually surprised by the synchronicity. I have people tell me all the time, oh, your video came at the right moment in my life. It was, synchronized perfectly. And then this was posted right after I made those videos, and it fit right in. And so I told him the next two videos after this week's is almost tailor-made for him. But I also felt like it wasn't enough. And so I wanted to do this video. This has been a long-time supporter of mine, and I do care very much for him. And so I wanted to do a deep dive because one of my strengths is actually being able to read between the lines and see what's going on and see where the real problems are coming from. And so he really needs to recenter himself and start focusing on limiting beliefs and state control, as talked about in the previous video. Because while your incoming reality is based upon what you had within, it's still going to throw you some sucky things your way, and you're going to have to resist it. You're going to have to break the cycle. You're going to have to treat it as if your reality is trying to trick you into taking the bait of getting angry or getting down and depressed, and you're going to have to not allow that. This will take a conscious effort, but you're going to have to do it until the incoming reality isn't so bad. The as within, so without maxim is on a bit of a delay. You still got incoming crap coming your way, most likely. And you're also going to have to adopt the new beliefs that all things are possible and that everybody gets what they deserve, which is going to lead you to have to examine what it is that's making you feel undeserving of the reality that you want. Because I guarantee you're down on yourself somewhere and feeling like you don't deserve it. Maybe it's because you haven't been taking action. But that's easily resolved. These things are fixable. There's no reason for you to be down. But it's up to you to change first before your reality will follow. Your reality is only a reflection of what you have going on inside. I mean, really what we do in magic is put things inside, put the instructions into our subconscious. We're adding things within so that they materialize without into our external reality. So you're going to have to give up the sour grapes. I know they're tasty. I know the bittersweet is delicious, but you have to give them up. You do. I love you, man. You can do it. I have faith in you. What you want is right there for the taking. You just need a shift in your emotional state and your mindset. And it's right there. And no joining the God-formed tier until you can afford it. And when you can, I'd love to have you back. But I don't want you giving me $100 a month when you're living in your car. That's not going to sit well with me. So you practice what we've gone over here in these last few videos. That right now is your only job. No concerning yourself with rituals until we get our inner state handled. And that goes for anybody that may be experiencing the same or similar things. You remember the first exercise I gave on the channel was to deny, reject, and banish the negative thoughts that are coming in your head while accepting the good and positive ones. We'll throw that exercise back in with this, okay? And then see how much things change with just doing this without the need for robes and ritual. Because we first need to change how we feel within before that is reflected without into our external reality. And we're going to end it here. It's been a longer one, but you are worth it, my friend. And I will see you next time. Take care.
Become a magician.